Thank you, Ian. Someone would think you owe me money. The introduction. Thank you very much for that. We have finally come to the end. We have a great panel here waiting to tell us about their experiences with e-government. We have Andrew, Charles, we have experts from Botswana, we have people who have worked with Nigeria government and Ghana government. We have everyone here. So without further ado, because we don't have much time and they have a lot to share with us, let's go straight into this. And I would want to give them each 30 seconds to introduce themselves and, you know, what you've done and what insights, where you've gotten your insights from, and then we can get into the panel. Thank you very much. So we can start with Moses and then Nyimbi.
Good afternoon. My name is Moses Maudu. I'm an account manager with Fortinet, leading cybersecurity globally. And my background at DL is I've been working with governments, banks, financial institutions, telecommunications companies just to secure their digital assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Moses. Nyimbi?
Right. My name is Nyimbi Adair. I once used to be in the private sector where I headed up Google in West Africa. I went into the public sector in Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya, and I'm now back in the private sector as a VP of Technical Product Management for a venture capital company.
Thank you. Charles?
Thank you very much. In short, I've been involved in using technology for training and knowledge sharing for over 20 years. I remember about 20 years ago when we used satellite systems to connect people across the globe, and today is quite an excitement to be on a remote area with only my laptop and I'm able to connect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Arindam. You're mute, Arindam. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, good. I would say it's still morning here in Botswana, maybe afternoon in your place. I'm a hardcore civil servant, Government of India, 1974 to 2000, Government of Botswana, 2001 to 2007, and after that independent with governments, with Commonwealth, with private sector organizations. I mainly, what shall I say? My forte is to be realistic and to have the feet always on the ground. Thank you.
So you don't like flying, huh? Yeah, so finally...
Even when you fly, it's better to have your foot on the ground. In this case, the ground would be the base of the cockpit of the aircraft.
Sure.
So that you are always there and you accept the realities, treat it humbly, and then you solve the problem humbly, without anger or excitement.
True. Thank you very much. Andrew, last but not least.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrew Gakiria. I'm fortunate to have been part of the team that developed the Kenya National E-Government Strategy and also operationalized the strategy over 20 years ago. I'm happy to see many familiar faces, and I look forward to share and also to learn more about what is happening in other parts. Thank you.
Andrew, I'm going to start with you. You were very excited about Arindam because of Maitlamo. You were very excited that finally you were meeting with him. Can you tell us more about, what you learned from him and from Botswana?
Yeah, Francis, I'm a cybersecurity practitioner as well, and I was just having a side chat with Arindam a few seconds ago about that. So, did you hack into our conversation, maybe?
Maybe.
Anyway.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, I had a chance to meet with Arindam about 20 years ago in Botswana, and we had gone to visit them to benchmark on the Maitlamo ICT policy, and it was a very interesting experience because we were benchmarking with an African country, and at that time we did not have many case studies to study from in Africa. So
the other one.
So I'm happy to see Arindam, and I think I'd like to pass over to him to tell us more about Maitlamo, because I'm also looking forward to hearing about what the experience has been and how we can continue to exchange and learn from each other.
Mr. Arindam, public demand that you tell us about.
Thank you very much.
What
the way Andrew
was
has
it?
spoken, he's made me speechless. So I'll have to take some time to sort of reboot and start talking again. Well, Maitlamo was born somewhere in 2004 when Botswana was doing quite well. First of all, let me make it very clear that I have no official standing now. I'm now pretty old and therefore retired. But I do keep busy and I'm working at least 50 to 60% of the time. But mostly on independent assignments with independent organizations or myself. Now the biggest advantage is that once you retire, your emotion or your attachment to your chair, whether the chair be in India, Botswana or Cameroon, that attachment and that emotion goes away. So what you speak sometimes is very, very hard to go through. I hope to be able to do that. Well, Maitlamo, the word Maitlamo in Setswana means commitment to progress or commitment. My lady friends love this word because of not that there any I'm having any positive or negative bias towards it, but just as a humorous point, they loved it. They say, this was a beautiful name that you gave to the policy. Why did we give this name to the policy? Because we wanted the policy to be loyal and to be faithful to the country and to do well. Now, Maitlamo, it was basically at that time there was a lot of good work going on in Botswana in government computerization, in telecommunications, etc. But it had to be looked at as a wholehearted basis. So the first thing that we did was to do a e-readiness assessment or an assessment of where we are in terms of telecommunications, processes, governance, and 7 pillars came out. The government pillar, the education pillar, the connectivity pillar, the pillar for communities, and then how to generate employment. Now, with all this, a strategy was made, and the thing which went the best was the telecommunication. I don't know why, but this particular aspect of telecommunication and interconnectivity went very well. The right partners were chosen, the right amount of freedom with the right amount of discipline was put in, and today the telecommunication rates, the data rates fell tremendously. Another thing that we realized was not just for Botswana but for Africa as a whole, we are very badly connected to the international data. So the foundations were laid for all the underground cables and the various networks and the partnerships on different countries. So, yes, but still, when you go back to the UNDP or the World Bank data, you find that Africa still, the data transmission, the use of data, the use of connectivity is still at least 4 or 5 times more expensive than Asia, and maybe even twice as much, even worse as compared to Europe or America, where or UK, where the data connectivity is much cheaper. So this is one thing that we still need to look at. Now, on the e-government side, what happened is that there were 3 elements. The human resource part, which went off not bad. If you see the indices, you see Botswana steadily rising. The connectivity part went well, but there were problems with processes. Botswana, you are given, the beauty of Botswana is the independence. And at times I used to say that we suffer from democratitis. It is everything is so democratic that every department, every individual likes to do it. So we had a model then called the IT framework. So this framework was common. It was implemented by all the ministries, so that every ministry, when it developed its own applications, they were robust, but they did follow certain common standards so that the data, etc., could be exchanged. But the challenge was that if you wanted to put this together as one combined system, there was a big problem because every ministry reported for different political leadership. So there were times when The e-governance part was brought under the IT ministry. It worked for some time, didn't work for some time, depending on personal relations. Long ago, it was under finance. Then finally, it was the old and the main recommendation of Maitlamo was taken that it should be under the Office of the President, which it is today. And if you see today, the main web pages have started coming out. There are still a few glitches here and there, but it's moving and we are there. But it has taken, say, infancy was, Maitlamo was born in 2004. It was born, conceived in 2004, born in 2007, matured over all these years, and is now fairly mature. It's a young adult or a more than maybe going into the 30s, and just about to enter the 30s. And e-government is a very important part of it. Many other things are doing much better. The IT connectivity, the access to IT are doing much better. So we've done well, and I'm saying this not as an ex-government servant, but totally independent, somebody who has decided to be a permanent resident and to live here.
Thank you.
Have at least 50 years of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do you think a good name played a role in its acceptance, even if, it didn't succeed as much as you expected?
No, I don't say I succeed as I expected. We have succeeded, but could have been faster. But well, there's no complaints. We are there, no complaints, and things are done well.
Thank you very much.
And another good thing that we did was outsourcing public-private partnerships. Whether Maitlamo grew or not, the number of people employed in IT, the amount of IT services, the total IT industry and the economic contribution due to IT has increased substantially. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much. Charles, tell us about smart government. Now that, assuming we have the infrastructure in place, like in Botswana, Kenya laid the fiber, we have enough fiber to Europe, to Dubai, to Asia, to South Africa. And, so assume the foundation is laid. So how do we go to the next step? What are the challenges? And what do you think is the way forward? And are we getting there? Do you think we are succeeding? Do you think the government is succeeding? Do you think it can do better? And what's your experience elsewhere?
Thank you very much. I wouldn't like to become a devil's advocate and to possibly limit myself into that.
Okay.
Arindam has spoken his experience in Botswana. And that's an area that gives me a difficulty in looking on how Africa is always turned into a follower in many of the initiatives. It started with issues of slavery, and then came issues of industrialization, the issues now of economic growth, and issues of technology. Africa is still lagging. And when we look into, for example, the e-government UN report 2020, it shows very little progress in African countries. And given the exposure and the way other governments are engaged, even if governments will do window dressing to improve the index in the survey, still most of the African countries are lagging behind. So I would say, rather than looking into individual countries, it will create a lot of value if countries in Africa could regionalize initiatives. There are a lot of efforts that go into development of softwares and applications. And despite that, we have some of the basic infrastructure. Still, the communities that are engaged are quite limited. And most of the innovators fail because they don't have the community, the economies of scale of the community that will be utilizing the applications. Governments also are struggling. Those investments required are quite a lot, and to some countries it's too much to cope with. There are other priorities that are biting. So there are challenges like that. And regional initiatives could really help. We had seen in the past countries working together to establish, for example, a railway like the Tanzania-Zambia Railway, a pipeline, the Tanzania-Zambia pipeline, and the like. I would really look forward to see governments coming up with similar initiatives that go across countries, connecting multiple countries, so that we can leapfrog into the digital economy. Another issue that we look into is a little bit of understatement is when we talk of smart government. Most of the African initiatives are looking into smart cities rather than smart government. And that creates a little bit of an illusion. And possibly when we look into how the government will be utilizing that data, there are quite a number of challenges that governments need to face. The issue of trust, it has been discussed by a number of people. How will, on one side, the government decide to set policies and trust that the implementation will really provide the confidentiality required? How will the citizen create trust that the data they provide wouldn't be utilized against their will? The issues of hackers and issues of cyber attacks that has been growing. But with all these challenges, we look into Africa as a great continent with a lot of potential. I will say possibly I look into two major opportunities that I see. We have a younger generation ready to use mobile technology, the younger generation that is ready to innovate, and that creates a bigger opportunity for governments in Africa to utilize what is already in the market. We also see the convergence of technologies in Africa. It creates a lot of opportunity for the continent. That has missed a lot in the past, but currently the convergence of technologies into mobile technology and utilizing satellites creates a lot of opportunity to the continent to leapfrog, adopt to the best technologies without wasting a lot of investment in resources in creating adaptability of hardware and software into new type of technologies. So there are opportunities, and possibly a platform like this one and many that need to come on board to enable multiple countries share experiences, learn from each other, and in doing so, investing heavily, really, into what we can develop within, rather than depending on developments that are coming from outside. That is one. But then looking also into things that we can own. It's a little bit of a pity when we see that we are looking into utilizing mobile technologies. But most of the companies that actually operate the mobile technologies are foreign. They're not even part of the governments in Africa. And also, when you look into production of mobile phones, they're all foreign. And these are the issues that possibly African governments need to look at, creating economies of scale, investing in their own people, developing sustainable initiatives that will enable smart governments in Africa. Possibly for now, I'll end up there and hand over back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. Moses, you know, the way you're looking, like you look like a cybersecurity expert, keenly looking for what could go wrong. So Charles has challenged, he said that we need to think more regionally. How would that work out? And he also mentioned about the deficit of trust. Do we have enough problems implementing e-government in one country so that, you know, thinking regionally would be too ambitious? What do you think, Moses?
I mean, I like his idea. I think for me, bringing it to reality is what will be the challenge. As you truly mentioned, we're struggling with our own issues, and probably sometimes not even bigger issues, smaller issues that we can address as a nation. So I'm thinking, would it make sense where to go as a region? Keeping in mind also, I think each government might have its own priorities. So I think it's a good way to look at it. but it will take a lot of effort because every government to prioritize its own needs and then come up together, discuss around smart government, having like a shared vision and a plan. I see maybe a little bit of a challenge looking at each country has its own priorities, challenges, and also, issue of resources. We have different resources. So that would be my input in that.
Okay. There's someone who resigned from the Pentagon, and he said that compared to China, the Pentagon's cybersecurity was kindergarten level. I don't know if you've seen that. It's doing the rounds right now. Where does that place us? I mean, if Pentagon is kindergarten level, where are we? What's your opinion about that?
I think there's a lot to do, and I think when you look at cybersecurity, you also need to look at risk. I think, and not to downplay anybody, I think all of us have different risk levels. So how probably somebody look at Pentagon is not the same way probably look at a government, a Kenyan government facility. Probably may not have even that infrastructure already built. So I think when you look at risk, then it changes a little bit. Then okay, am I susceptible to attacks? And as I said, the Pentagon is a different thing. And so for us, where we see a lot of attacks is now probably banking, because there's money to it. As compared to government, we're still seeing it coming to government, with now government moving to smart government, adopting digital transformation. But I think the issue is around risk. Different government agencies will have a different risk threshold based on what they have and what the hackers are looking for.
Okay, and my other question to you directly is, my experience with data science is that a lot of the tools are available and a lot of the training is available, yet we don't have enough people getting into it. What's your experience with cybersecurity? Is the training available? How can the government bridge the gap, the skilling gap, the capacity gap? Is it what needs to be done? Is it a policy thing? Is it a training thing? What exactly needs to be done? Yes, and I'll come back to you, Andrew.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. So one of the things, I was just reading somewhere yesterday. So we have around 4 million unfilled jobs around cybersecurity. So that's huge. And we're still saying our youth are unemployed. So we have 4 million worth of jobs that are not filled globally. So I think one of the things is first just laying an emphasis around cybersecurity as a career. That's one. And secondly, also being very deliberate to even for the education sector, universities coming up with programs geared specifically in cybersecurity. Because I'm yet to see an undergraduate around cybersecurity. Yes, there's a master's, but I'm yet to see an undergraduate specifically around cybersecurity. As much as now it's a whole a huge area compared to what you do in just a bachelor's of IT. So I think there's that need also for education players to come up with courses around this, and also government now to just train its government, its citizens, and most importantly, its workforce around cybersecurity. I think that will go in a long way into just bridging that cybersecurity gap that we have around.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Andrew, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I wanted to concur with the sentiments of Charles about the issue of going regional. And it's good to see you again, Charles. I don't know if you can remember me, but I recall under the East African Community, we had a regional working group on e-government, and Harry was part of that team, and other familiar faces I'm seeing. And at last research, there was already conversations going on between East African Community, COMESA, and SADC to come up with a combined approach towards e-government legislation. Because I think you will agree with me that policy and legislation is one of the most critical pillars in e-government implementation because of issues like customs and immigration and security and cross-border trade as well. So I want to also to concur with the sentiments by Harry during his opening remarks today, where he talked about a proposal to have an Africa Regional e-government caucus to continue this conversation, because I believe that it's only through a regional approach that we can be able to effectively tackle some of these challenges we face. Yes, we have a lot of technical challenges in terms of deployment, resources, in terms of financial resources, human capacity. But from my experience, being part of the regional working group, having an effective legal policy environment will lay the ground for effective e-government implementation. And I will also mention that the Huduma centers in Kenya, which we developed as e-government centers, are a perfect example of a harmonized policy and legal environment that allows multiple agencies to collaborate and to share data and to secure this data. So I will be very keen to have a continuation of that conversation about a regional approach, and maybe I will challenge the CIO team to facilitate this conversation, to have contacts between the regional bodies and see how we can have a harmonized policy and legal environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Nyimbi, Mr. Nyimbi, you've been quiet, but I don't blame you. It's my fault. Mr. Nyimbi, you have worked with the governments of Nigeria and Ghana. You did the voter registration system for Nigeria. You've also been advisor to the Chief Justice. Tell us about what do you think? Kenya is getting ready for elections next year, and voter registration has begun. And the last elections, Kenya made history for good reasons and bad reasons. What do you think is the role of IT in dispute resolution when it comes to elections? And what could have been done differently? What maybe should be done differently?
Great. I can't claim to know exactly what our IBC is doing, so I will not comment on what they do. What I can talk about is there's been a lot of talk in government about budgets in order to implement smarter e-government. I think that this is exactly upside down. There isn't a technology problem. We have the technology, we've got the networks, we've got the skills across every country. There isn't a single country across the continent you will go to that you will not find unemployed, highly skilled people. So it's not an issue of understanding the technology, knowing how to deploy it, or knowing how to use it. And it is also certainly not a function of budgets, which is a common outcry. It's not a shortage of money. I think that in order to make these systems work, you need both people, process, and technology. And the problem starts at either the people or the process. I heard mention the issue of policy and legal frameworks. That's part of the process. But the most important impediment to actual implementation of greater efficiencies in government is actually the people. Part of the problem, and the way to think about it, is if you widen the gates through which people can come through, more people will come through, but it means that you've got to do more work for the same salary. Nobody wants that. So unless you find a way to shove the work elsewhere, there's going to continue to be resistance to implementing greater access. And unfortunately, gatekeepers, being a gatekeeper of any system is a very lucrative thing. People don't want to give up being gatekeepers to certificates, title deeds, car registration, whatever it is. Nobody wants to give up that gatekeeper role. So it's the people that is the problem. It's not technology, budget, or any of this. And I can give you a simple example. So in Ghana, for instance,
they wanted to implement a police-wide, Ghana is a huge country, they wanted to implement a police-wide case tracking system. There were two ways to go. You could try to put internet access, computers, train people, and put them into every single police station across tens of thousands. Or you could do something very simple. You could give people, you could incentivize OCPDs to buy smartphones. And if they got a smartphone, they could enter all their cases on their smartphone. Guess what happened? It got implemented on smartphones. And so you go to report a crime in Ghana, it will be recorded on a phone.
Wow.
They will collect evidence by taking pictures with a smartphone.
Wow.
They'll record your statement on the smartphone. And without VSATs or fiber or local area networks in that police station. The difference here was not that there was some massive technological leap. It was a function of will. We've got the solutions. We know what job needs to be done. We just don't want to do it. I'm sorry to rain on the we've got to budget more or it'll take years to implement. It's a function of people. And unfortunately, what's happening is every time you've got a process change, it requires learning and it requires behavior change and a perturbation of the entire ecosystem. Nobody wants that. Nobody likes change. Despite everybody voting every year for change, they don't really want it. And so that is the problem. So we don't have a technology problem. We don't have a resourcing problem. We've got a political problem and a problem of will.
Wow. Okay.
And I'll stop there because
wow.
I'm sure everybody else wants to talk about this.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Actually, I wish we had a lot more time. There are so many insights coming out of the discussion. I'm going to give you each 30 seconds. Anything that you haven't said and you wanted to say, 30 seconds. And we start with you, Nyimbu, because you are the last one to speak, and let's start with you. Is there anything you wanted to add for 30 seconds?
No, other than agreeing that the policy, regulatory, and legal frameworks need to be harmonized, we need to find some way of either as a technical community or as citizens to compel some of these efficiencies that we want to see.
Thank you. So it's a political problem. It's not a technological problem. The processes exist. It's not a budget problem. We just are not serious about it. Is that a fair summary?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Charles? Charles, I really wanted to ask you a question. Madam Suluhu is very popular here in Kenya, perhaps even more popular in Kenya than in Tanzania. And she has, initiated quite a lot of changes, change of direction. And I don't know if she has initiated any change in e-government, and maybe we don't have time for that, and maybe it's unfair to ask you to spend your 30 seconds discussing that. Maybe I'll give you a minute, 30 seconds to answer that, then 30 seconds your summary.
I'll make a response in a very general manner.
Okay.
And possibly emphasizing on what I was saying earlier, that if we regionalize initiatives, a person in Kenya, like CIO, doing this type of an initiative, it goes beyond the borders. It can go across the continent. And in that case, underpin some of the successes that exist. We just had an initiative in Kenya. They are managing financial transactions between Kenya and India. Why don't they manage across the African continent? No, that's a possibility. Rather than other countries starting again to reinvent a system that will work. And in that way, that company can grow and maybe become a global player in that area. So I'm looking at it in a way that there are a lot of possibilities, and possibly what I'd like to emphasize is that if we make a link with the private sector, this is what I didn't say earlier, But if governments set the right policies and create appropriate strategies and implementation frameworks, the private sector will follow. The private sector will invest, actually. And there are examples where governments have actually made deadlines and the technology companies came in, implemented with a zero cost on the government. So in that case, if we really move on, like the way Andrew said earlier, some of the regional initiatives already exist. It's just a matter of replicating or sharing that type of information and making sure that is owned by relevant politicians, and it creates a top-down ownership. Then a lot of things can be resolved.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Charles. Andrew, you seem to, you know Charles, he's from Tanzania, Arindame is from Botswana. You seem to know a lot of people around the continent. I think you're the right person to know. So maybe the question to you, Charles, is the regionalization we are talking about, the regional projects we are talking about. Could the African Union perhaps help there? What do you think? Is there a body in Africa that could adopt this? Even as Harry mentioned, forming another body, is there an existing body that could help?
Yeah, most definitely. We have, like you said, the African Union Commission. We have the East African Community, SADC, and the regional integration bodies, and the UN system. There is already a lot of work going on in terms of either supporting in-country initiatives or supporting cross-border initiatives. And as I give my summary, because I know you will not give me another chance to say this, I will give two concrete proposals.
Okay.
Before I do that, is to thank Harry and the CIO team for organizing this. I think this is a very important conversation. We need to continue. My two proposals. Singapore School of Public Service has a whole arm that is staffed and managed by retired public servants like myself and Arindam. And it is their way of harnessing the knowledge and skills and experiences that the retired public servants have accumulated. So they are actively engaging the public servants not only in policy, but in training. My second concrete proposal is that we should have what we call an e-government observatory. And we had started work on this, under the East African Community. And this is just a repository of information about what is going on in Africa. This morning, I tried to search online for, latest information about e-governance in Africa. And the closest I came was World Bank and UN reports. We do not have a lot of information about what is happening in Africa. And the first thing is to share information. That's why I'm able to know Charles and Harry, and now I know you, Francis, and Arindam, and the rest of you, because of sharing information. So if we can have that as a take-home package, that let's set up an e-government observatory. Let's also engage with our schools of public service to start harnessing the knowledge and skills from not only retired public servants, but current civil servants, to harness that into, promoting implementation of e-government. And I think we'll be on the highway towards achieving effective and efficient e-government in Africa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Arindame, 30 seconds. Summary? You're mute.
Extremely useful discussions, very good suggestions. I would like to just bring in a term called body of knowledge. In many disciplines, they have created, with organizations like the CIO, with the assistance of international donors, regional donors, have started what is known as a body of knowledge. In this, what you do for e-government, what we could simply do is have a place or have a website or have a conference or have a portal where all the knowledge available on different disciplines and the knowledge on the merit or the performance of different countries, different regions in e-government is put together. And what they do, what results they have achieved, this is analyzed, looked at by somebody independent who is not emotionally attached to those results or to those activities. helps to make all this available. It's not free, but I believe that it should be possible if it is properly structured, and if it is done by somebody who is not an individual but as a group like we are here, to seek international assistance, international or even private agencies to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. When I grow up, I want to be like you, retired, working 50% of the time, and having made an impact. Thank you very much for that. Moses, you are the host. Fortinet is a gold sponsor. That's why I'm finishing with you. 30 seconds.
So I think for me, it's just, so one, I think as Nyingi Odero said, is I think the political will has to be there. It's an issue about budget and all that, so the political will has to be there. Then secondly, so, having the right people also in the right places to make those decisions around digitization, digital transformation, and most importantly, as we embark on digital transformation and building smart governments, look at the consider cybersecurity as part of those particular projects, because then no need for having these services that can easily, leak data, lose revenue through malicious hacks and all that. So security should be part of the conversation when they're thinking about digital transformation. Thank you.
Thank you. So we should think about everything at the same time: the security, the policy, the technology, the skilling, the framework, the commissions. Wow, I think that's why we need all of you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Oh, I didn't have a lady today. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your contribution, for the discussion. It was great having all of you. And, I will look forward to growing old like Arindame and meeting you guys, like Andrew has been meeting all of you. And let's see where we can take this. Thank you very much.